Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Daring Dialogues. I am your host, Shantae Charles. I hope that everybody is having a great and wonderful morning. Good morning, Lady Barbara. Good morning to those of you who are watching by YouTube live stream. Good morning to those of you who are watching by Periscope, outside the app, inside the app, by laptop, by Facebook, and the such like. Well, if you are new to Daring Dialogues, you need to know that I like to cover various subjects Monday through Friday. And then we're back on for our ministry broadcast on Sundays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sundays are our teaching times, and so you will not see broadcasts of praise and worship. You will not see broadcasts of us laying hands on people, though we do that. You will not see broadcasts of us showing people in their intimate times of worship or falling on the floor or any of that. Although that does happen, we do not film it. Why don't we film it? I'm so glad you're asked, because it is not for show. And we like to respect the worship experience and encounter of others. And so we try not to film those pieces of our ministry. All right, so that's why you only see teaching. All right, and if you want to come, feel free to come to the ministry and you can experience those other parts. But we only film the teaching segment and any announcements that we have. All right, so again, if you're new to Daring Dialogues, Monday we cover motivation for you, and right now we're talking about kingdom disciples and biblical hospitality. Teachable Tuesdays, we try to cover something that has to do with history, particularly Black history and the history of race in our country. Wednesdays, we try to give you a little bit of wisdom from some of our devotional books. Thursdays is normally our Theology Thursdays, where we're covering things particularly about Jesus and about Scripture and about Jesus's place in Scripture, as well as world religions and secular views. And then Fridays, we like to seal off the week talking about health issues and finance issues. So we're going to get back into the Owner's Manual, and we've been talking about brain health, and so we talked about keeping your brain healthy, keeping your brain active, and we started out by talking about doing the things or taking certain medications that can keep your blood flow open as you get older. And one of those things we talked about was using anti-inflammatory medications. That it has been proven that people who take 1 aspirin a day, that it actually helps keep your blood flow open to the brain. Then we talked about exercising your brain and how, good morning everyone, and how there's a need to exercise your brain by doing such things as reading, playing games that stretch your mind, doing math skill games, crossword puzzles, etc. And then last time we talked about brain food, food that helps your brain. And those things were nuts and fish, soybeans, tomato juice and spaghetti sauce, olive oil, nut oils, fish oil, flaxseed, avocados, and then real chocolate, cocoa-based chocolate, which I told you that I personally love, but it does have, real cocoa does have a little bit of a, what do I call it, bitter taste on it when you eat it. All right. So I do have my coffee here because, as you all can hear, I need some help. Now, we want to talk about the fourth action that you can take, which is reducing stress. The woosah moments, right? I will tell you professionally, I do have some certification in stress relief and stress management. I got a chance to, through my job, take some courses and get some training and get certified in helping people to relieve their stress. And so there are several things that can be done. But we're going to talk mainly about what they're sharing here. But stress is something that can take a toll on your body. And I don't think people realize that how much stress can affect your blood pressure, how much stress can affect your ability to sleep, how much stress can affect you with the potential of getting headaches all the time. And so a part of helping your brain, good morning, is to reduce stress. Good morning to my wonderful husband and everyone who is in the conversation box today. So they're saying here, in a lot of ways, stress is good. It's the physiological mechanism that helps us function. It helps us meet deadlines, and it also helps us run away from wild beasts. Faced with a situation that requires action, we either decide to fight it, hustle to meet the deadline, or we run away from it, i.e. wild beast chasing you. Most people aren't gonna stand there, they're gonna run. It's the process that defines what we call the fight or flight mechanism that's built in you, all right? So when stress is applied to a person's life, they're going to do one of two things. They're gonna either fight or they're going to enter into flight mode. When those stressors reach extremely high levels, stress becomes dangerous. That's because of the effect of the stress hormone called cortisol. When you're constantly under stress, your cortisol is elevated too high. When your glands become exhausted, you end up with low levels. That's when stress is most damaging, when it exhausts your ability to increase your cortisol. Now, we talked about this before in terms of African Americans, right? We talked about that because of this heightened sense of discrimination, heightened sense of terror and things happening in our nation, that as one writer said, we were never meant to stay at a level of terror or of heightened stress, right? But there are many African Americans in our country that are actually living at heightened levels of stress for various reasons, and then throw in all of the extra stuff that has been happening since January 20th, and you have got yourself a dangerous position and problem, all right? So while even though you do recognize what is happening in the world, you do recognize what's going on in the world, you have got to reduce your personal stress level. And I know that's hard to say, but you've got to do it. You've got to find ways to reduce your stress level, whether that is going to a comedy show or looking at some comedy or finding something to laugh about, even if it's laughing at yourself like me, like I do all the time. I laugh at myself because I'm just goofy sometimes. But you have to find a way to reduce your stress level, all right? He says here, in fact, what we usually think of as a stress, the daily hassles like deadlines, getting the kids out of the door, does not age our brain. It's the major stresses and nagging little stresses that actually age us. For years, researchers believed that having a type A high-wired personality resulted in stress-induced illness. Well, I don't think that is true, because my husband has a type A high-wired personality and he's rarely ill. So let's see what the researchers have to say. But your brain doesn't age from the stress you bring onto yourself, like working hard and trying to achieve your goals. Your brain also doesn't age from the one-time intermediate stressors, like a flat tire on your bike or the fender bender in the parking lot. You're welcome, darling. These important but manageable events, we call them IBMs, do not cause us to age because they are problems we can solve. Hint, hint. Instead, illness comes mainly from events that constantly stress you, even if they're minor to other people, and do so for a prolonged period. So they're talking about things that stress you out for a long period of time, to which you really have no full control over or the ability to solve. And to me, that would definitely describe a lot of what is happening right now in our country. Okay? So, one category of these stressors is nagging unfinished tasks. Nagging unfinished tasks. For example, the nagging stress of sitting on a wobbly toilet seat and never fixing it will age you. If it is one of those things that just gnaws at you every time you use it. The other, as you expect, is from a major life event, like moving. Moving will age you. Did y'all know that? So now that you know, think on it, okay? And if you've had to move, upload, pack several times in a lifetime, it can age you. Somebody say hallelujah and thank God for renewed youth. Because I went through a season, my husband and I went through a season where we kept moving, and we had to. It wasn't like we had a choice. But it can age you. So, think about that. Moving, dealing with financial burdens can age you, or coping with the death of a family member can age you. I lost my father and my grandmother, two of the most special and important and confidential people in my life outside of my husband. I lost both of them within 9 months. Let me tell you, that aged me. I look back at some of the images of myself during that time period, and boy, I looked probably about 10 years older than I do right now. Sometimes you can actually look back at several events in your life, especially if you were taking pictures then, and you can actually look back and see how weathered or how aged you look because of whatever was going on in your life, whatever was stressing you out. So nagging stress wears you out, while persistent stressors are true killers. Did y'all hear that? We don't want any brain dead people. We don't. Nagging stressors wear you out. Persistent stressors are true killers. You can have a major impact on your youth by reducing stress in your life. Here's a couple. How do I want to reduce the stress in my life? Friendships. That means I have to actually intentionally evaluate the friendships that I have. Because some people, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but some people are surrounded by stressors that they call friends. Now, if you are that person, God can help you. Just ask him to make you a valuable asset to people's life and not a liability, right? There are some people that we call friends, but they're actually stressors, because every time you get around them, they either make you nervous, they have some kind of problem, they've got some kind of drama, they need something from you, and it becomes, as Lady Barbara said, I think it becomes draining. All right. So you want to have friends who know how to reduce your stress. There are certain people who call on me because they find me hilarious. And so they'll call me, we'll have a conversation, we'll laugh, we'll talk, and they'll say, thank you. I feel so much better. You help me to see the lighter side of things, right? We need people in our life like that. Another way that you can reduce your stress is by exercise. Exercise. Now, I understand, because I went through my own health issues. Everybody can't do the same kinds of exercises, but everybody can maybe lift some light weights, like 2-pound, 5-pound weights. You can do that at home, right? They've got all kinds of different stretch bands materials you can use. If you're a person who doesn't like to go to the gym, you can walk outside. If you're in a relatively safe area, if you're not and you have a car, you can drive to a park that has a trail and walk there. So there are different things that you can do concerning exercise. You don't have to be the person who gets the gym membership, although if you can afford it and you like the gym and you like to be around other people while you're working out, go for it. Do the gym membership if that will help you put some discipline behind your exercise time. Prayer and meditation is a stress reducer. I used to work with a group of young girls, and one of the reasons why I got this certification in stress and anger management techniques is because of the population that I was working with at the time. And I remember I would have young girls, teenage girls between the ages of 12 and sometimes all the way up to 19. They would come in my space, and a lot of them, for whatever reason, resisted any kind of quietness, solitude, calming down, internal thinking. And so every time they would come to my space, some of them would buck against this whole process, because we would do it once a week on Fridays. And I remember those same girls, even though some of them at first I did not, pressure them to do the exercises, after a while, when they saw their other friends de-stressing, relaxing, taking the time to go to sleep, decompressing, and they actually saw their other friends' attitudes begin to change, then they started jumping into the process. Because one thing about de-stressing is when you see how it works for other people, you begin to ask them, why are you so happy all the time? Why are you so joyful all the time? Why are you so calm all the time? Why do you have so much patience with people? In other words, people can see the results of how you live a stress-free or a stress-reduced life. It begins to show up in how you talk to people. It begins to show up in how you deal with situations in life. There are a lot of times where things have happened to me and I've shared them with people, and they say, I don't even understand how you responded that way. Well, a part of me responding that way means that I had to do that meditation, do that prayer part, and I try to ask God to help me respond correctly when the situation happens. Because in the middle of the situation, I'm not going to have time to think about whether I want to be kind or not. But if I'm preparing and prepping my mind for it before it occurs, it's more natural for me to flow into the behavior of Christ, in my case, than it is for me to just hope kindness is going to pop out. All right? Because some people can catch you off guard, right? They can say something to you that totally throws you off. But if you've been in a place of meditation and you've been in a place of prayer, it's easier to respond, right, out of the place of meditation and prayer than it is to try to get a prayer life in the middle of whatever happens. Okay? One of the things for me, I used to be a very, believe it or not, I used to be a very angry person. And I used to, if somebody made me angry, I would just punch them in the face. Like, I wouldn't give them a conversation. I wouldn't be like, oh, we're going to throw down or we're going to fight. If they started saying something to me that started raising my blood, okay, or started making me irate, my response would be to start fighting you. Like, you don't get an announcement that I'm about to beat you up. I would just start fighting you. And so I had to learn for myself, what do I do to reduce the stress when I hear something that is raising my temperature, right? So I would do things like a countdown. Okay? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And as I'm counting down, I am praying. Good morning, Lady Apostle. As I'm counting down, I'm praying, Lord, bring my thoughts in. Lord, help my tongue. Lord, give me the proper response for this person, because what I want to say, I need you to snatch that, and then I need you to give me the appropriate response for this person, because what I want to say is going to get me in trouble with you later. And how many of you know, if you love God, you do not want to be on the bad side of a God that you love. You just don't. All right? And so, again, we talking about reducing stress so that you can have a healthy brain, and so that your brain and your life does not age quickly. All right? So, friendships can help you reduce your stress. Exercise can help you reduce your stress. Prayer can help you reduce your stress. And group affiliation. All right? So that can be getting involved in something you're doing with your community. Getting involved with, I know my husband and I, we try to get involved in what the police associations are doing. Why? Because we want to make a difference in that particular area. We don't always want to be the people talking about what the problems are. We also want to be the people involved and engaged in solutions, right? So think about those things as stress reducers. In fact, doing so will give back 30 of the 32 years that major life events can take away. Major life events, they estimate, can take away 32 years of your life. Two of our favorite stress reducers are laughing and meditating. Laughing, which reduces anxiety, tension, and stress, can make you between 1 to 7 and 8 years younger. All right. And we already know the scripture says that laughter does us good like medicine. So they're not saying something science-wise that the scripture doesn't already tell you. With meditation or prayer, there's a multiple payoff. It helps maintain your brain cells and preserves your memory-related functions. And the stress reduction component of the meditation or prayer helps prevent such conditions, as depression and anxiety disorder. Now, these doctors are telling you that prayer and meditation prevent depression and anxiety disorders. But when the preacher tells you that, y'all get upset. Am I right? When the preacher says, maybe you need to pray about it, some people get upset. And they're like, what do you mean I need to pray about it? The doctors here are telling you that prayer and meditation can prevent conditions like depression and anxiety disorder. Now, the doctor prescribes it. Some of you all will go off and y'all will go pay that doctor $200 or whatever your copay is. $200 or your copay. You will pay him to tell you the same thing that the pastor has told you last Sunday, and y'all still have not followed through. So, to pray, what you need is a quiet room. With your eyes partially closed, focus in on good thoughts, read the scriptures, repeat the scriptures, find scriptures that have to do with your situation, find scriptures on peace. One of my favorite is Isaiah 26 verse 3. God will keep me in perfect peace because I have chosen to put my mind on him. Notice, I did not use the King James Version of that scripture. I personalized it because I want to affirm personally what I believe the scripture is telling me. So the King James Version says, thou shalt keep thee in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. But I just personalize it. God, here I am. I'm here to hear from you. I am having a bad day, or a situation in my life has occurred that I do not know the way out of. I do not know what to do about this situation. But I am trusting you to keep me in perfect peace, because I have chosen to put my mind on you. I have chosen to bring my problem and set it before you. And I ask you to help me solve this problem, to give me an answer to this problem, to put me in the path of people that can help me with this problem. And I trust that you are the God who gives answers. Amen and amen. All right. Sometimes we make prayer a spooky spiritual thing. Prayer is communication with God, applying the word and believing the word, and believing that the God that we are applying to, who is in heaven, that we believe that he is, and that he's going to hear us and give us a response. All right. So cardiologist Dean Ornish even starts off his processes of prayer with a small piece of dark chocolate. That process of prayer is what helps clear and relax your mind. It's what has the overall positive effect on your health, and you can use phrases within your prayer time. Now, we know that the Bible talks about don't use repetitive phrases, right? Don't create mantras thinking that those mantras are going to help you. All right. So when we're talking about prayer, we're talking about the biblical prescription for prayer. We know that there are other things out there, but if you want to look at what are some of the biblical prescriptions for prayer, I would recommend that you start in Matthew chapter 6. All right. So that concludes activity for the brain and brain health. Next Friday, we'll pick another topic and we'll go through that. I want to move now into talking about some business tips in finance, and I believe that you all are going to enjoy these two particular books. This one, the first one we're going to look at is The Power of Small. The Power of Small. Why little things make all the difference. And these are little business vignettes, but they are very, very, very powerful. And I wanted to preview the book and read through before I started sharing with you all. So let's take a look at Small Truths. Small Truths. Emily Dickinson quote says, you can gain more control over your life by paying closer attention to the little things. And these are some of the small truths. We're not going to go into these first two, but I do want to share them. Truth number one is it's a bite-sized world, and we'll come back to that. Truth number two is small acts tell a larger story. But I want to focus on truth number 3 today and truth number 4. Truth number 3 is everyone matters. Somebody can hashtag that. Everyone matters. All souls matter. Linda remembers calling her mother, who lives in West Palm Beach, the night of the 2000 presidential election, to tell her that Florida, which at first seemed to have gone to Al Gore, suddenly had been declared for George Bush. Now, if you lived in Florida, I was a Florida resident all my life until 2011. So if you lived in Florida in 2000, you know how controversial this particular election was and how everybody was upset. People were demanding recounts, etc., etc., etc. Jeb Bush, which was George Bush's brother, happened to be governor at the time. So people definitely saw this as a conspiracy, right? So 2000 presidential election, all of a sudden, the state that everybody thought Al Gore had secured went to or was declared as having gone to George Bush. Well, Linda, this is what I believe her mother said. Well, Linda, I'm not surprised that there is confusion about the results, considering how hard it was to read those ballots, my mother said. Your dad thinks he voted for Pat Buchanan. How is that possible, I asked. My father had always been a staunch Democrat. It's possible because the punch holes were so close together, it was easy to make a mistake, my mother explained. And I think several folks in our condo made the same error. I dismissed my mother's concerns with a breezy reassurance. Well, I wouldn't worry about it. After all, a couple hundred retirees in Palm Beach County are certainly not going to decide our next president. The rest is for the history books. But the ballot battle that ended up in the Supreme Court all started with one small problem and one person's misconceived solution. Teresa Lepore, the former supervisor of elections for Palm Beach County, designed the famous butterfly ballot to accommodate a long list of candidates' names and supposedly made it easier to read. Instead, the confusing piece of cardboard led to thousands of miscounted and lost votes. Changing the design arguably ignited the series of events that ultimately determined the presidency and the course of history. The ripple effect of small actions can never be underestimated. It's easy to dismiss the potential impact of a single individual or employee until you realize that one voice from even the most unexpected quarter can solve an ongoing business problem, galvanize a community, or change the world. Several years back, a major restaurant chain that was a former client of ours was losing a ton of money because its crystal was breaking with alarming frequency. Regional and district managers met at one of the restaurants to discuss what to do. Should they devise a new training program for the wait staff? Should they replace all the glassware with a different brand? A busboy, overhearing the discussion, pulled one of the executives aside and took him to the kitchen. There, he demonstrated how the commercial dishwashers the restaurant had installed would vibrate. The repeated exposure to the vibrations, he suggested, might have weakened and ultimately shattered the crystal. The dishwashers were replaced and the breakage stopped, saving the company millions of dollars in the years ahead and earning the busboy a $150,000 tip. Corporate research shows that the humble, old-fashioned employee suggestion box can be one of the most effective money savers and money makers a company of any size can have. The Chicago-based National Association of Suggestion Systems estimates that employee suggestion programs have saved more than $2 billion. Can I help some leaders? Can I help you? Can I help you? Get a suggestion box. Moreover, 37% of the suggestions employees submit are actually adopted. A lot of some of the policy changes of Walmart happen because of employee suggestions. Among them, and this is going back to the reading here, among them was the idea a janitor came up with when the historic El Cortez Hotel in San Diego decided to install an additional elevator to better serve its guests. Engineers had drawn up plans that would require closing the hotel for several months so that an elevator shaft could be cut through each floor of the hotel. A janitor concerned about the mess it would create, as well as the jobs lost while the hotel was closed, offered a suggestion that was both tidy and inspired. Why not build the elevator on the outside of the hotel? This way the hotel could avoid the loss of revenue due to closing space and spare employee layoffs. and no guests would be inconvenienced since the construction would take place on the exterior of the building. The engineers agreed, and El Cortez became the first hotel to give visitors a bird's eye view of the beautiful San Diego Bay as they ascended to their rooms. Today, outside elevators are an admired mainstay of some of the world's poshest resorts. Where did that idea come from? A janitor's suggestion who was trying to save jobs and make a better plan that would help not just himself, but somebody else. Now it is a design mainstay for posh resorts. Think about that. Truth number 4. A little good goes a long way. A little good goes a long way. 10 years ago, Scott Fimple was a Navy petty officer in Washington, D.C. On shore duty, he worked in a large office building with a confusing labyrinth of floors and wings. One morning, Scott was walking through the lobby on his way to lunch when he spotted an older man in a civilian suit who looked like he was lost. Scott approached the visitor with a smile. "Can I help you?" By coincidence, the gentleman turned out to be on his way to meet with Scott's superior officer. He introduced himself and escorted the man to his boss's office. They then exchanged pleasantries and went their separate ways. Later that year, Scott's superior officer summoned him with good news. After years of stellar service, Scott was being awarded a highly coveted Navy Commendation Medal. Overwhelmed, Scott stammered out his thanks. It was only later that he learned that his award was the result of a letter of recommendation from Admiral Dwayne Griffith, who oversaw every department in the building. Scott was mystified. He had never actually met Admiral Griffith. Why would he personally put Scott up for such an honor? Turns out that the stranger to whom Scott had shown a much appreciated courtesy when he escorted him to his captain's office was none other than the Admiral himself, dressed in civilian clothes for an off-duty lunch with a friend. Nothing terrible would have happened to Scott if he hadn't offered to help the Admiral, and the man obviously would have found his way to the right office. The point is that it wasn't Scott's job to escort him, and in fact, there was no expectation that he should. But Scott made a random decision to do what he felt was right. What is interesting is what not making that choice might have cost him. That is the real moral of this story. When you do nothing, you are doing something. You might be closing the door to an opportunity. Every interaction we have should be viewed as a door that has the potential to lead you to a different place. In the business world, our grand plans at times need to be dismantled and broken down into the smallest actions. Every phone call, and my husband can tell you his testimony about that. Every phone call, every email, every point of contact with a customer, a client, a patient, or a colleague is an opportunity to excel and to do the unexpected, and in doing so, reveal yourself. My God, that's a preach word. Listen. How many opportunities have people missed for another open door to a greater thing because they said to themselves, "That's not my job." Just say la on that. Just say la. The next time you hear somebody say, "That's not my job," as to why they don't want to help somebody, help them out, please. You just might be missing your next opportunity because a part of this man's opportunity came from doing something that he felt was right, even though it wasn't his job. And sometimes we can limit our own lives and we can limit our own selves when we take the attitude of, I'm only doing the bare minimum. And I'll tell you right now, what sets leaders apart from other people is that leaders do not do the bare minimum, ever. How can you point out, how can you tell that you're in the company of leaders? Leaders don't do the bare minimum. Leaders are always looking for ways to go above and beyond. Leaders are looking for opportunities to help other people. Here's another one. Leaders stay open to possibility. Leaders don't say, well, I'm not at the church, so I guess my pastoring stops on Wednesdays and Sundays. No, 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 no. Leaders, pastors, spiritual leaders stay open to opportunity. They stay open to help people. They stay open to be the person found doing the little good that goes a long way. I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read some of his statements one more time because I think people need to get this. He said, when you do nothing, you are doing something. You're closing the door to an opportunity. Every interaction we have should be viewed as a door that has the potential to lead you to a different place. One of the miracles of my husband's life that has opened up the opportunity to do what he has dreamed about doing his entire life came through wanting to help people and wanting to do good. And he answered a phone call at a time that he normally would not have picked up the phone. Just one phone call shifted him and in turn our entire family into a whole different level in opportunity that has been blessing our life residually. So we are living examples and we are living proof of truth. Number 4. Small change. 3 things here that this chapter closes with. But like I said, we'll go back to truth number 1 and number 2 next week. Small change. Become a mini tasker. Do you find that the things on your to-do list never seem to get crossed off, but just carried from day to day for weeks at a time? That's because sell the house or finish that major research or marketing project is a tall order. Instead of making a list of big, difficult to achieve goals at the beginning of your work week, create an action list and place these things into mini tasks that you can actually accomplish on a day-to-day basis. Instead of, for example, writing down sell the house, create a series of smaller steps like call the broker, write a listing for the house, hire a repair person to fix things in the house. Instead of panicking over the big things that haven't been done, relish the satisfaction from smaller accomplishments that lead to the overall goal. Appreciate the little things. My husband will tell you I am very big on trying to appreciate the little things in life. Traffic was a nightmare. Your new client may have been late to the meeting and set your day back by half an hour. Even lunch may have had its mishaps, unless a mustard stain on your blouse has become a fashion statement. Hit the pause button on your day. Take a breath when you feel overwhelmed and give yourself a few moments to tally up the things that went right in your life for the day. Did your son call you to thank you for helping him with school? Did your boss compliment you? Make a list of 5 positive things that have happened during the course of your day, even if your day was stressful. Appreciate them. Reflect on what you did to make those things happen and try to do more of that tomorrow. So even if you feel like, man, my week just flew by, I didn't get as much accomplished as I wanted. Maybe you had a family crisis, or you had a health issue that came up this morning, or that came up today, or that came up earlier in the week, and it kind of set your schedule back. You still need to take time to appreciate the things that you did accomplish for the week and for the day. Make small impressions. It's hard to wow them every day, and let's face it, we live in a society where the question is often, what have you done for me lately? So look for ways to insert positive impressions on people, no matter how small, into every encounter. Start every meeting with a compliment for the most junior individual in the room or the youngest person to your team. So if you're in ministry and you have people that are new to your ministry and they're new to being involved in your ministry, start with those people first. Say something good about them, encourage them, and keep going. Hint, hint, keep going. Don't just always compliment the new people who come into your ministry or who come on your leadership team, but also compliment people who have been with you, as they say, from day one. Don't forget the people who have been consistently faithful to your vision or to your team or to your work, right? So you can do things like bringing extra treats to work, something I used to do when I was in the 9-to-5 sector. Another thing I would do is I would come in early and I would start coffee, and I would make coffee for everyone. So people who were running late and who didn't drive to a Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, or maybe they didn't have the money, right, to buy a cup of coffee. The coffee lovers loved me because I would buy coffee for the place of employ that I was at, and I would make coffee. And when they came in the mornings, there would be a fresh pot brewing, and it was something that they didn't have to worry about and they didn't have to think about. They just came right in, got their cup, and went about their day. It wasn't something that I had to do. It was something that I wanted to do. It was making a small impression to show people that you care, right? Be the person who does something as simple as hitting the elevator hold button for somebody. I told you all before that when my husband and I were out on a trip, there was an entire family that was coming down the hall, and they were struggling, but we held the elevator for them, and they were able to pack in with us. And it was a whole family of young black children. And just in those few seconds that we were on the elevator, my husband was able to speak a word over those children, a word of positivity, and they got off the elevator lit up. It doesn't take a whole lot to make a small impression that is positive. These little positive acts virtually take very little effort, but they compound over time to create an overall impression of you as a person of positivity. And when you need to call in a favor, who knows, God may repay your positivity, your small impressions, with interest. All right. So, small truths, the power of small, why little things make all the difference. As we close up, this book is called The Little Book of Business Wisdom. The Little Book of Business Wisdom. And I'm going to read you, this is actually little vignettes about different people in business and some of their own personal tips that they decided to share. So it's got everybody in here from Henry Ford to Andrew Carnegie, where they've taken all of these leaders in business and just given you some of their best business practices. This is an excellent book if you are an entrepreneur, you're setting out, you're starting out, and you want to be personally mentored by some of the best business minds. But hey, you can't call up Henry Ford, right? Can't call him up. Can't call up Michael Dell. But you can allow the words of wisdom to help you in your mentorship process. So this one comes from John H. Johnson. John H. Johnson, founder of Negro Digest, Ebony, and Fashion Fair Cosmetics, among many other ventures, is the most powerful African-American business person in the United States. Not bad considering his father was killed when Johnson was just a child and he grew up in poverty. To inspire himself as a young man, he made a habit of reading Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People in high school. That is actually a very well-known book for those in the business world. They recommend that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. In 1942, he founded Negro Digest by putting his mother's furniture up as collateral for a $500 loan. In 1945, he founded Ebony Magazine, the cornerstone of his empire, which we know, or if you maybe you didn't know, that Ebony Magazine was sold. All right, so it's no longer his magazine. In breaking through racial barriers to attract advertising from white-owned companies, Johnson often had less than 5 minutes to sell them the opportunity of buying an ad in his magazine. So this is what he had to say. How to sell anything in 5 minutes or less. Those of you who are in business, you need to be taking notes. Whether I had 5 or 35 minutes, I always base my presentation on 3 tried and tested rules. Number 1, grab the client's attention in the first 2 or 3 seconds with a fact or an emotional statement that hits them where they live or do business. 2, find the vulnerable spot. Everybody has something that will make him or her move or say yes. It may have nothing in the world to do with his or her business life. It may be a dream or a hope or a commitment to a person or a thing. Selling is about finding the point and pushing the yes button. A remarkable example of this was reported by William Grayson, who discovered that a powerful advertising executive was a fan of Roy Campanella, the great Brooklyn Dodgers catcher. The executive and his son lived in the old Ebbets Field and virtually worshiped the home plate ground Campanella walked on. Grayson, who lived down the street from Campanella, asked the baseball star to autograph one of his home run balls to the boy. The ball carried not only his name, but the date he hit the home run. By coincidence, the advertising executive and his son had been in Ebbets Field on the day Campanella hit the home run. That sold the account. Nothing, neither statistics nor graphs nor 100 telephone calls, was as powerful as an unexpectedly powerful gift to a loved one. So again, he found something that the business person that he was trying to get the transaction with actually wanted. Number 3, find and emphasize common ground. You and the client may disagree on many things. You may like Jesse Jackson and he or she may dislike Jesse Jackson. You're not there to talk about what divides you. You're not there to talk about what divides you. You're there to emphasize the values, the hopes, and the aspirations that bind you together. Successful selling is a matter of finding common ground, no matter how narrow it might be, on which you and your client can stand together. This is business, people. Business tip. You're not there to get into what divides you. You are there to talk about what you have in common. Smart habits. To inspire a positive mental attitude, Johnson would lock himself in his office and say the word success over and over. Mantras. Extreme measures. Early on as an entrepreneur, Johnson so feared failure that he fired an employee merely for suggesting that he might fail. Wow. All right. Last one, and then we're done for today. This one is from Joe Foxworth, J-O Foxworth. When Joe Foxworth founded her own advertising agency, when Joe Foxworth, who founded her own advertising agency, was inducted into the American Advertising Hall of Fame, she was one of only 6 women to have received the honor at the time. And to think that she was thrown out of Mississippi State College for Women for protesting a curriculum designed to make wives out of them. Foxworth earned a degree in journalism from the University of Missouri and then went to work for a newspaper selling advertising. For a number of years, she worked in the advertising departments of various stores. Eventually, she joined the McCann Erickson Advertising Agency as a copywriter in 1955. After successful work on campaigns for companies such as Westinghouse, Procter & Gamble, and Coca-Cola, Foxworth, who espouses listening to your customer, founded her own firm in 1968. So here is her business advice for us. First, shut up and listen. Don't tell this to a preacher now. Don't tell any of the preachers that I told you this, okay? Shut up and listen. Although the sound of one's own voice may be the sweetest music this side of Lincoln Center, the world and our own little plots of it in particular would probably be better if we'd shut up and listen more often. It boils down to this. Number 1, silence is golden, no matter what they say at CBS and your friendly local disco. As noise pollution rises, so does the premium price on quiet. Another sermon, Lord. As noise pollution rises, so does the premium on quiet. Please do not disturb the peace at the office any more than it is disturbed already. Put some hearts on the screen if you think that since she said this, noise pollution in our world has increased. I believe it. People have a very hard time being in quiet with their own thoughts and thinking. Go to any restaurant, and my husband tells you this, my husband can tell you this. Sometimes I don't like going to restaurants because everything is so loud. The people are loud. The televisions are on. There's music playing, like all of this distracting stuff. I like quiet. Number 2, while thinking out loud may help you crystallize your own ideas, this may also keep other people from crystallizing theirs. This was something I struggled with because for me, sometimes to think, as they talked about here, sometimes I would think out loud, not be talking to myself, working problems out. And my coworkers would be like, are you talking to us? And I'm like, no, I'm just talking to myself, just figuring things out. But I had to learn how to begin to internalize a little bit more because this is true. While thinking out loud may help you crystallize your own ideas, this may also keep other people from crystallizing theirs. Since theirs can do as much good as your own, maybe even more, make your conversation an exchange, not a monologue. Number 3, do not let people outside your organization pick your brains unless they're good friends or willing to pay. I can't tell you how many people I have ticked off because my job is intellectual property. And some people don't understand that. That means that people pay me for consultation. Why? Because they respect my business ideas and decisions that help them make residual income. So number 3, Do not let people outside your organization pick your brains unless they're good friends or willing to pay. And let me let you in on a little secret. Good friends are also willing to pay. Because if they understand that that is your business and they value you as a friend and they value your profession, which good friends do, then they will pay you for your consultation. Good friends don't always want everything for free. See, Lord, I done turned another corner. Good friends do not always want everything for free. Good friends who value you will invest in you. They will invest in your business. They will invest in your company. And it's reciprocal, because if you value your friends, you will invest in them too. All right? What you know is worth money. It's called intellectual property. It is. Why give it away for the sake of a little ego trip? Do I give some information on a base level for free? I do. But if you want more detailed things from me, you have to pay for it. Why? Because I also put in time to do the research to give you that information. I went to school, paid somebody to learn what I know. All right? So, number 4, don't speak up at a meeting until you have something meaningful to contribute. Talking to attract attention may call attention only to your blank spots and your blind spots. This is good. Talking to attract attention may call attention only to your blank spots and your blind spots. Number 4, do not interrupt busy people or worried people with advice and comments. Do not present them with any problem or idea that can actually wait. 6, never under any circumstances talk when you don't know what you're talking about. Okay. This is the most obvious dictum in business, yet it remains the one most often violated. 7, when you do speak, control the volume. The female voice under stress can be extremely unpleasant sounding. It's hard to remember this when you're angry, upset, or excited, but try to keep your voice down. Lastly, a savvy leadership tip: don't over-decorate your office because you want people to pay attention to you, not what's on the wall. In this case, I want you to pay attention to me and what's on the wall. Lastly, and we're closing, questions about age, sex, and salary. In the immortal words of Casey Stengel, you don't have to tell nobody nothing. Practice smiling, and remember that an unanswered question is stickier for the asker than the askee. If you are in the workforce and you are working at a corporation, keep the following points in mind. And I thought these were very interesting points. So if you disagree with these points, I would love to hear your perspective. But he gives 3 points about age, salary, and sex. Number 1, don't tell your age to anybody. You may be so proud of being the youngest executive in the history of the company that you'll be tempted to shout it from the air conditioning tower, but you'll be another middle-aged executive someday and maybe not so eager to broadcast your age. Number 2, don't tell your salary to anybody. Listen, if you've ever been in business, you know that this is like, well, hopefully, if you're in business, you have kept this to yourself, especially working in a company. Don't tell anybody your salary. This is privileged information, and spreading it around can cause trouble for top management. Top management hates trouble. And one of the first things you learn when you are running a company is why these people are at the top. They know how to use discretion. Why wouldn't I tell somebody what my salary is? And people will ask you, this is a good tip for millennials, because if you are just graduating from college and you're starting in an entry-level position, right? Or you're in business on your own and you just launched your business and you got your first contract. Some people are going to ask you, well, how much money was it? Or how much money did you make? And it can cause all kinds of unnecessary drama, envy, jealousy, problems, etc. Anybody who has worked in the workforce for a very long period of time can tell you that if you start sharing what your salary is, you're going to have people who are upset. You might have people who have been there longer who make way less than you do. Or you might have people coming behind you who make more than you do. So it's just not good business practice to go around telling people what your salary is. Number 3, don't tell the fascinating story of your sex life to anybody. Can I say that again? Do I have 120 seconds, people? Just put some hearts on the screen. I know I'm past time. I'm going to work on that. All right? I need 120 seconds. Just 120. Don't tell the fascinating story of your sex life to anybody. There are people in the workplace that people run away from because they have an inability to keep their sex life to themselves, to keep sexual innuendo to themselves, to keep sexual jokes to themselves. They're always saying something sexual in a professional setting. Let me tell you, that's not good. All right? Whether you're male or female. Now that everybody's lurid sexual exploits are in the public domain, you cannot impress your associates with yours anyway. That's what he said. He said everybody's telling their business now. Stuff is all over the internet now. So keep your fascinating sex life story. Keep that to yourself. Here's another one. If you're married, value your own spouse's privacy and keep that to yourself. I know that just went pew, pew, pew. But we have too many people who are exposing their personal sex life and calling it ministry. And on that, I'm going to close. Listen. Keep that part of your life out of the public square and keep it sacred. One thing that I will tell you as I close, and one thing that I have recognized over time, is that when I see especially married couples, all right, begin to talk about their private sexual bedroom in the public, separation and divorce is not too far off. I forget who the couple was, but it was a musical couple, and they would do these like romantic songs with each other and talk about how they want to sex each other up, and they just had all this sexual commentary around their relationship. And I remember seeing something about them doing like a concert or whatever, where they had a bed on the stage and she was dressed in lingerie and they were singing back and forth to each other. And I automatically saw that and I said, they don't realize they're violating the principle of the marriage bed being honorable and not a place to be publicized for defilement. And shortly after that, I saw that they had separated and they were getting a divorce. And I think they did get a divorce. But you have to be careful. I absolutely agree with the writer there about what kind of conversation you need to be having in the public square and with your professional life. Be careful of sexual talk and sexual jokes, because what can it turn into later? It can turn into charges of sexual misconduct. It can turn into accusations of sexual harassment. And if you have built a reputation in your place of work as being a person who does that kind of joking, then it will be more readily believed that you could be possibly guilty. All right. So again, protect your reputation by being cognizant and being aware of what you say in the workplace and what you actually talk about. Thank you for your time and attention. Thank you for the extra 120 seconds. I hope that you have enjoyed today's Daring Dialogue, that you've learned something that you can apply into other areas of your life, especially in health and in business. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So I hope that you will go out today and be light in your community. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Take care and God bless. All right. And thank you, YouTube viewers, for your time and attention. Take care and God bless.